Hello, welcome to Coffee with Avila. I'm Aviana Lemaire, and I'm talking about autistic grief today. And I'm talking about this in the context of me having mentioned, I think in my last video, the last two, I think it was a two-parter, and I was talking about, I mentioned some of us kind of going through infinite grief in our lives, and some of us, apparently it's a well-known thing. Some people have this, the concept of a spiritual contract where you've come here to deal with things, and one of those things is grief. It's what you've been through, it's what previous generations have been through, it's the family legacy, it's things that have unfolded through time. And interestingly enough, I'm realizing right now one of those things is going to be autistic grief, because a lot of us come from families where the culture has needed us to be something. Whether or not the word autism was there for what we are, we knew we weren't supposed to be whatever we are. There's something about us that's different, something about us that's fringe, it's off to the side. For generations, a lot of us come from families where we don't even realize until we know we are how many people we're related to who are. And sometimes those families embrace it, and sometimes those families are like, what, me? No, I'm not autistic, because they've got an idea of what that means. It might not be a positive idea. But I'm realizing a lot of us will come from a long line of people who are autistic but didn't know, or wouldn't or couldn't accept it, or heard it and immediately thought, okay, there's something wrong with me, and it's something really, really big and really, really bad. Because if you see these differences as being wrong, you're probably going to see the wrongness as being proportional to the differences, and the differences in the autistic brain and experience and showcase are massive. They're huge. And if you're having that experience, this is going to be a big bad thing. But even if you're not having that experience, even if you don't necessarily know what you think about it, there's something amazing that I've noticed, and I haven't really heard people talk about it as a given. I don't know if I have had a conversation with anyone so far who knows that they are autistic now, where they did not go through something massive in their life when they found out. And so in that context, this hopefully won't be a ridiculously long video. And I'm realizing it's a ridiculously long subject, but I'm mainly here to acknowledge that it's a thing. If you feel like something has been lost from you, or your life, or your heart, your lifespan, like retroactively, currently and going forward, as if something is slipping away or has slipped away, this is not uncommon, and it's not to be unexpected. I don't even know how to begin. For me, I'll put it this way. I had an idea of everything, and I didn't know exactly why everything was taking place or how it worked the way it did, but I had an idea of where I fit and things that were possible. I was one of those people who believed that my behaviors were all something I could fix, that I was either born broken or that I had developed brokenness along the way, which I did. You go through things, sometimes those things break you. I did have things where I developed stuff along the way. But I had this concept, I knew what was trauma from remembering it happening and the changes in my life. I have what seems to be unique amongst people, where I remember the moments when something traumatized me quite clearly, and that's something I've spent my life thinking about. But I also remember the things that people consider to be wrong or broken or not good enough, or the ones that just don't fit into society, the ones that make it harder to slide into a society that is NT-normative and nothing else normative. And I remember those things already being there. So my pre-autism awareness mindset had been formulated to believe that those things were just me being born broken, that there was just something inherently wrong with me. And I definitely don't think that now. That was a part of my journey. But even if I was to still think, even if I were right now in this moment to still think all of that stuff that I'm born with is messed up, all of this applies because everything in my mind at some point came into this full view and full focus. I think I used this even in my last video. Interesting. I'm trying to talk about grieving and looking at your life in the past, and the only thing I can do is repeatedly bring up my last video, even though I'm not talking about the same thing anymore. But in the last one, I used this like a metaphor for looking at my life, all of my life through, trying to understand the details, trying to get it. But before I knew, I have a different brain and I'm built to be a different thing. I was looking at these videos and pictures, trying to understand all the details of all of my memories and everything that had happened, but I didn't realize that there was some kind of filter that was filtering out some of the most important details. And realizing that I'm autistic came along and kind of cleared all of that. So now I can see all of those details and I can understand exactly why. I had an idea in general, but it zoomed me in so tightly I could pour across every detail in my life, why interactions happened the way they did, why what you could call goals, for the sake of brevity, I'll call goals and hopes and dreams and things in my life, desires, needs, why they worked the way they did, why they didn't work when they didn't work. Everything just came into crisp focus. And something that I think we should all know, even if you are not certain yet. I think I just heard my stomach rumbling. I hope that that's not loud enough to hear in the video, but my microphone is somewhere near my stomach, so if I cut it weirdly, it's because of that. Now let me see if I can remember what I was saying. I think it needs to be said. I was talking to somebody one time, had a weird situation on an interesting site where people just kept getting snipped right out of the site all of a sudden, and I was talking to someone, pretty certain they were autistic, knew they were ADHD, pretty certain they were autistic. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty certain you're autistic too. Let me officially be the first one to welcome you in. But they went and did the official thing and got the diagnosis and came back certain. And I said, I think I'll always remember this because, like I said, people were just getting wiped off of that site left and right. And all of a sudden their account was just eliminated. Everything was wiped out. And it wasn't like when you are having a conversation and they just stop conversing or they, ghost you. The account was gone. Retroactively, the stuff that we talked about, remarks and everything. But I think the last thing I had said to this person, aside from something like welcome officially, was be prepared right now for an overwhelming wave of emotion. Things like anger and grief, as everything in your life from inception to this moment starts to come into view. I wanted to warn them because this is something that I ran into. And very often we run into something where we're thinking, oh, okay, I see, I've got a label. It sums me up. Now, what does this label mean to me? Does it mean bad things? Does it mean bad things about me? Does it mean I'm messed up? Does it mean my life is messed up? Does it mean my life is always going to be messed up? There's a lot to process. There's a huge amount to process. And one of the massive things in my life when I'm talking about grieving through something is laying to rest the images, the effigy of everything I thought ever was or would be, my hopes and my dreams. And it doesn't mean that I can't live a life, but it does mean that everything in my life can't be the way I imagined it being. I had an image built in me of what normal and healthy looked like, and I was on my way, and I thought I could achieve it. And for better or worse, realizing that I'm a different animal with a different brain and a different soul, and I work in a different way, told me that everything I expected was not going to be. Even if it could be, it would be different than how I imagined it. Maybe it would all be better. I know from firsthand experience now that it's very possible that some of what I imagined before, how do I say this? I'm trying to be private. From firsthand experience, I know that some of the things I wanted that I thought would be amazing, now that they've happened in the context of my neurodivergence and my self-love and my self-care, they're amazing beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I don't want the old thing the way I wanted it, because my best fantasies about it being perfect don't even begin to compare with how it actually functions in real life. And yes, some of that stuff falls under the category of human interrelations. It's not just all, I don't know, I'm not trying to be geek squad about life. It's not like, I'm really enjoying my personal studies and my special interests now because I've just decided to go till the wheels fall off. And I have, and that is magnificent. But I mean, like the unreachable bar that's not supposed to be out there for us, where you can connect with another human being, yeah, that stuff is better than anything I ever imagined in my wildest dreams. And I want to take a moment to shove that in there, because I don't know that I've ever heard anybody shove that in there. I just looked up at the clock and it said 12:12. I'm like, isn't that interesting? 12:12. It so distracted me. Tried not to say it, but here we are. I needed to mention that because I don't know how many times I've ever heard anyone say, when they're talking about the loss of their old life and their old hopes and their old dreams and their old self-image, that hurt, and it did hurt, and there was grief, and there was grief. Then there sometimes, I don't know, sometimes as you keep living, you run into a new patch of grief you didn't even know you could have. I've had those moments. But the real thing, as who I truly am, and as who I was made to be, being as God made me to be, is so much better than all the other stuff I wanted. And I am not talking about stuff where I've given up in life and I've given up on hope and I just want the bare minimum. I used to have fantasies about how good a relationship could be. It's better. It's better now. I had to lay all of that stuff to rest and let go of it and move on and bury it, because I had to continue living. So I couldn't continue to carry the dead in my spirit. I couldn't carry the essence of death inside of the essence of life. They don't compute. They're not meant to be in the same place. And so by trying to carry that old concept of what I wanted, I just kept my arms filled so that there was no space to hold on to something that was alive. And I need it to be put out there, because I will not have beautiful experiences in a world where we're not necessarily supposed to have beautiful experiences and then not mention it in case anyone needs to hear it, because I didn't know. I kind of had to have these experiences firsthand to know that there was something better. So I'm going to say, for everyone to hear, there can be something better. But of course there can, because when you love yourself, everything is inherently better. And I say that from firsthand awareness too. I was born loving myself, went through everything. Decades later, I love myself again, and everything is better just because of that. But the experiences too. I went on with that for a moment and I can't remember what I was saying before I started, but I think it's more important for me to say that because I need us to know that it's not just all grief. And people say it does get better, it can get better, that you move into a place where you know how to live with it. There's so many different kinds. Everybody accepts the type of grief where there is a bodily loss, especially of another person. But the spirit is bigger. The spirit is grander than that. It's a spiritual loss. The reason why it's so hurtful and harmful when there's a bodily loss of another person is because there's a spiritual loss. You miss being able to merge with their soul. You miss being able to hear the essence of them come through their mouth or their eyes or do whatever they do. Make music, play drums on the wall or play drums on drums or just drumming on the table as a stem, whatever it is. There's something about the essence of what was lost that harms us. And it's not even necessarily about the body, as much as that can be a beautiful accoutrement, and it's the way in which we interface. It's about who was in it. And it is a spiritual loss. This is why it's possible for us to lose ourselves and to grieve, because if we feel disconnected from our own spirit and our own soul, it is a great loss. It's a terrible, painful loss, and there is grief to be had. And when you discover, it's possible for a person to discover that they're autistic and or ADHD and suddenly understand, and everything seems like it's so clear right now. I get it now. But along with that, understanding what is true, you start, it's juxtaposed naturally. There's a duality of suddenly knowing the truth because you can see it clearly, and then suddenly knowing what was before was not the truth, because now you can see that clearly too. And so as this truth comes into view for what is, you kind of can't avoid seeing the truth come into view for what isn't. And one or both of these could be extremely saddening events. Because what you have learned in this moment is very often, for some of us, it's going to be huge. And for me, it was huge. So I'm talking from that experience. For some of us, there's a term that says your new life is going to cost you your old one. And it's very often used in the manifestation community because someone wants to do something new with their life, but sometimes the old habits and the old experiences are taking up so much space that there's no room to bring something new in. And for me, the realization that I am 100% neurodivergent in just so many ways. It was the new life that moved in, and it moved in so hard one day. I had been doing what was necessary so that this could take place, but it moved in so hard that my old life just disappeared. The new one came to life, and I only had room for one life and one ultimate truth of my life. I shouldn't even say ultimate truth because there are a lot of ultimate truths on a spiritual level, but I only had room to live one life, right? Inside of this one life slot I had. So the other one just disappeared. And the new one came in so hard, the other one was just gone. And it, for me, was swift, and it was sudden, and it was overwhelming, and the memories came back, and they came screaming, and it was too much to go into. So I'm going to try to shut that down because the feelings still come back to me. It's why I'm getting emotional thinking about it. It's always so emotional. It was amazing. But my new life did cost me my old one. And I'm going to say I did not want my old one. It was not working for me. It was horrible. It was killing me. It was crushing me. It was ruining my soul. And it was making me feel like it was draining life essence from my spirit. But it was the only life I had. And the sensation of it ripping away from me was shocking. And I didn't know the new life yet. I just knew the old one was gone and I didn't get to say goodbye. Not that I would even miss it, but that I needed to be able to process that something had changed on this level, that everything had changed. And so the transition was massive. And I found myself in a state of realization and awareness, and I went through multiple stages. And I was grieving. I was grieving for myself. I was grieving my own life. I was grieving my hopes and my dreams, my ambitions and my goals, so to speak. Those aren't the words I would use, but they're the quickest colloquialisms that really everybody gets. You get what I mean by it, and ultimately the essence of it is true, so I'm going to use those terms because otherwise it's just too complex for me to try to explain. I don't have the words. So yeah, all of my ambitions, my hopes, my dreams for careers, for things I'd be able to tolerate, for situations I'd be able to be in, for relationships I might be able to have and maintain, the person I might have been able to be, that dream that one day you can go to a party. I don't go to a party, but you end up going places with people. So I'm like, okay, I'd love to be able to go to a party with someone and just be calm and not have the noise sort of beating away at my brain to the point where it's just like, I thought maybe there was something in me where I could calm down my nervous center, my nervous system and my trauma and everything, and just not be. I actually used to think some of my thing with nerves was from trauma, and that's why it was affecting me so deeply, and I was having these sensory overload experiences, and it was a combination of both. But maybe that's another video, because ultimately underneath it, I still am a person who's very sensitive. I didn't realize I'm a sensory seeking autist. I'm also a very sensory sensitive autist, but I need the right things to stimulate the senses, right? When it's the wrong thing. So I used to imagine maybe in every social situation I'll be able to go everywhere with someone. I don't know, future dreams about going with a husband, or not that I wanted to, but once again, I kind of figured back in the day I'd be in a relationship. You don't know who the person is yet. You don't know what they want, if they want to hang out with family or friends, or if they have business situations. I'm like, I want to be able to be my own husband's plus one. I don't want these things to stop me. I don't know what it would mean now for those situations. I will self-care myself. Perhaps I will put in those noise dampening earplugs that people wear to concerts. I don't know, but now I know it's a different thing. Maybe the solution isn't so horrifying if it's just, hey, put in some earplugs. I don't have a problem with that. Some people would. I don't, so it's fine. But it just means it's a whole different life. It's a whole different situation. The life of just being fine and walking into the room in any situation, or being able to have an extremely, extremely stressful and overwhelming career, it's changed for me. Now I look at all of my old dreams, and sometimes they're very much thrown into my face. I end up sitting next to somebody in the holidays in a situation I wouldn't have chosen for myself, listening to them telling me, as they imminently chase their dreams, about the fact that their dreams are the ones I used to have. And I know this person is going to do this stuff because I've seen this happen. I've seen children get up and go. That's another late bloomer effect and something I had to deal with. I've seen people announce pregnancies, and then I live my life just dealing with all the stuff that's on me. And instead of living my own dreams, one day that announced pregnancy walks in as an adult and is just doing the stuff I wanted to do long before they were conceived. Late bloomer. But that's another video. I will get very distracted. thinking about those things taking place in my life and getting to a place where I can handle it, you know. You're supposed to be able to handle it and have a thicker skin and not be so sensitive, and all those terms that were used at me and thrown against me and all this stuff. I realized I can't I can't do that, because me at my best, I still have certain, I don't know what to, everybody else would say know your limits and know your limitations, but I don't really want to say that, because when it comes down to neurodivergence, when people say know your limits and know your limitations, it sounds like they're saying other people are unlimited and they can just keep pushing and pushing, and we are limited and we can't. And that's very much not the truth, especially those of us who are autistic. We know it's generally the opposite way around, right? We have a tendency to be limitless in areas where other people can't process it. They literally can't process it, and they cannot, despite videos and social media and books and systems and everything else, they can't duplicate it, because that's not how they're made. It is how we're made. But I have to realize at some point, and along with that came grief, that a lot of the dreams that I had, I knew that they weren't happening because of all the other things in my life. And those things weren't all neurodivergence. Neurodivergence was the least of my concerns. And I say that mindfully, with a great deal of awareness that it's true, just to be clear, because I don't want to misrepresent the experience of being ND, and I don't want to misrepresent my experience, and I don't want to leave any gray area here. In my experiences, I knew that things hadn't happened and I knew why. But in my mind, if the other things that stopped me hadn't happened, I could have lived the dream life. So for me, learning about the ND thing, I've been sitting here for years processing and realizing, I don't know if couldn't have is the right term, but I've been thinking to myself, oh, I guess I couldn't have. And I know myself, and I know the way I make decisions, and I know that there are things where even if I had had the opportunities and I had had the money for things, if I had had support and I had had finances and I had had my health, even as a small child and all throughout those years and those decades, I know that had I achieved my goals, I would have abruptly stopped them at some point, because it would have been too much for me. There were things I wanted to do that were very empathically draining, and because of what I've been through in life, I now know being hit with that in a high stress, high pressure situation, I would probably have stopped. I would have fought for years to achieve my dreams, and then I would have ended up feeling like I was losing them to take care of me. And it might have felt more out of control. It might have ended up kind of in the same place. I don't know. I still think I would have been better off, but that's something else I had to grieve. Because it doesn't matter what I think I would have been if I'd had the support and finances and safety and the health, because I didn't. And sometimes you just end up in this loop and this circle where you're thinking about what could have been, could it have been, what would have been, would it have been. And I'm not trying to say anything about an unhealthy loop that eats your entire life and breaks your soul. I'm talking about the healthy one that some of us know we have to go through, because if we do not deal with the past and bury the old bodies and grieve for the old things, we carry them with us into infinity, and there's nothing else but the past. And so this is what I choose to do, because this is my life path. I deal with these things. I'm built this way naturally. I know for a lot of people it's difficult, but I can't be the only one for whom the awareness of self is constant, for better or worse. I'm aware of it. I think about these things. I strive for more knowledge. I've spent my life studying the human experience, the human spirit, the human soul, the essence of everything, the nature of God, and the experiences thereof, the interconnections. And if there's any one thing that I personally know, it is that if you refuse to bury the old and gone and dead, it just remains unburied. And that's not something I'm going to spend my life living with or experiencing. So I choose to go through these processes. And they've happened in a lot of areas, but one of the most massive ones was realizing my brain wasn't what I thought it was. I'm not what I thought I was. Health isn't what I thought it was. The meaning of everything got flipped upside down, and I had to grieve for that too, because it was what I once thought I knew. I once thought I knew who I could be and what I could be in perfect health, and that is nothing like what I thought it was. And I would never choose in this moment, to be clear, I would never choose what I thought over what's true, because I prefer who I am. And I prefer what is true. And I love that my favorite things about me are not weaknesses, but they're strengths. When people would tell me I had to have a thicker skin because I was busy feeling emotions for people stronger than they seemed to feel them for themselves, you know. I would see something humiliating happen to somebody, and I won't get into that right now, but a particular memory pops into mind as a child, and I saw something humiliating happen to somebody that involved their family, and it was a moment where someone who should do anything to take care of you and protect you was doing something that was profoundly harmful. Not like life or death harmful, but if I said what it was, you'd be like, at least you'd be like, oh dang, ow, oh no, oh that must have hurt. And it was just such a moment from that place that person got upset and ran off, and as a child I didn't understand why. It was like, I'm angry, let's not address this. But then I learned some more things. I'm like, okay, she was saying let's not address this because she knew it had been addressed, because I had witnessed it, so she just wanted that to go away. But back then I'm like, oh, okay, she doesn't seem to want to experience this, and of course you wouldn't. Let me just stop because I'm in the abstract and I'm lost in the memory, but there are things where visualizing the whole situation, there are things where I would be feeling something for someone and it lingered with me for days, for weeks. I continued to think about it. I didn't bring it up, and I tried not to continue to think about it, but I now had seen this thing that explained her to me, and it changed my viewpoint of this person with all of these thorns and things all over them. It changed my awareness of the beauty of this rose. And so, and the danger, the beauty and the danger of this particular rose. And I was constantly just, you know, they'll tell you, oh, you're overthinking, you're spending too much time ruminating about it, and it's somebody else's business, and you need to just put that aside and stop thinking about it. You really think they want you to be obsessing over it. But I now get that my mind just processes things. And that was a huge modifier in understanding who this person was and how this person treated me. And there were a lot of things there for me to process. And so I thought about it and I felt for it, and I still remember, because it's a part of the beauty of the rose and the danger of the thorns. And I think thorns are beautiful too. It's just, maybe you don't have to be so cautious about the petals as you are about the thorns, and so you process their beauty differently. But I love learning that empathy is a strong, is the term strong suit? For some reason that sounds negative to me, obviously because of the religious background, but that's a strong aspect of us. It's built into us. It's a place where we excel notably. It's a place where people, like science, has recognized that we excel notably. And it is something that I love about myself. And I came not to love it so much because it hurt so much so often, and because it was remarked on very, very often, and sometimes positively, and sometimes quite negatively. And so I had a lot of mixed feelings. But then I realized that's all a part of being autistic. That's part of my spiritual gift. That God built me to be able to do this and to be able to process people in this way. And it's a beautiful thing to me that I can process them based on feeling the truth, because I wasn't necessarily built to excel at processing people based on seeing the truth. You know, they can act in a certain way and say certain things, and I don't communicate in their neural language, and I don't have their neural culture, and they don't have my neural language or my neural culture. So we can't understand each other. So then I learned how to understand theirs. But before I was able to learn, which took work and years and much study, I had the inherent sensations that helped me and that protected me. And it helped me in that moment as a child witnessing something humiliating happening to somebody else. That even though everything in my system said, my goodness, be their love and supportive friend, when she ran away, I was overwhelmed with the sensation, even though it was confusing to me to watch the linguistic and cultural expressions. My feeling was overwhelming. This is uncomfortable. She's uncomfortable. She wants this to go away. So I left it alone. And I'm completely certain, especially based on that personality type, that that's part of the reason why we still had a friendship, even though it was a weird one. I don't even want to get into it. It was one of those life-setting experiences with somebody that changes your awareness of the human race. But I'm just glad I was able to handle myself in a way that made sense. I had that overwhelming sensation, and I had enough sense and enough knowledge and enough instinct from various places to just go with it. And I wouldn't have known that if I had just been trying to pick up on the cues and everything, because the subtext was confusing and it's not how I think and blah, blah, blah. I'm repeating myself, I think, here. But we'll see. I've gone on now for 37 minutes, and I think I'm hitting a place where, I don't know, just to sum up that last few minutes, the point was to say, I love who I am more than I love who I wanted to be. I prefer how I'm built. And as I live a life as a self-loving, autistic and ADHD, human, chocolate-skinned, female, I was going to say Christian, but you know, all those things, sometimes they're different things where on paper some people will immediately have an issue with you, like autistic, brown skin, great hiccups. I love all of those things. I love that I have come to love myself, and I know my worth is beyond what should be stated, or in some situations could be understood. I'm seeing myself more through the eyes God wanted me to see myself through. And I know that my worth is not limited, and I know it's especially not limited by other people's limited view of me. And everything that I know now, going through all of this grief and losing the old life and the old me and the old illusions of me and the old dreams, that hurt. And it was so overwhelming. And now that it has been laid to rest, and maybe I'm still laying it to rest in unexpected ways, things, I think it's possibly going to be more of a lifelong journey than I want it to be. But now that the crux of that is over and the massive shock of it is through, I don't want it. I'm glad that it's gone, because unlike losing someone you love and don't want to lose, where you miss having them there, I was grieving for myself, but I was grieving for a self that wasn't entirely true, that wasn't filled with love for myself and was not filled with love from other people or the world at large. And what I got in exchange for that is someone who loves herself like God loves me. I see the complexities, and I can't begin to explain the difference. I've healed in a way that made me better and stronger than what I was before anything harmed me. And I love all of the healing spots, and I love the extra strength. And while I do not enjoy the bad things, that's what got me here. And it got me here partly because I was able to process the grief, and because I didn't put it off, and because I didn't deny it, and because I didn't choose to throw it away. And so I think it's a beautiful kind of grief. And I'm here for the healthy recognition and honoring of our autistic grief, whether it be about another person, a relationship, someone who's gone permanently physically, or someone who's gone permanently spiritually, or our own older selves, or dreams, or whatever it is. I'm here to elevate grief to what I think is its deserved standing, where we recognize that this is how we clean what we can no longer use away. It's like the vulture, and some people are distressed by vultures, and some people know, but wait, this bird is here to clean everything away. And if we're very realistic about life, a lot of us, especially some of us like me, metropolitan chick, doesn't really want to have to go out and scrape the entire world clean of all of the roadkill and the loss to attrition and all this stuff that's happening everywhere for any type of animal or situation. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to deal with it. I'm very grateful that there is an entire ecosystem built to take care of those things. And that's kind of what we are spiritually. We're an ecosystem, and we have life and we have death. Things come and they go. They move out. They nourish the earth. They become the thing that fertilizes what's going to grow next and what's going to come in its place. Whether it's the same plant, or it's one from a new season, or you've planted something else that you want to take root in its place. And grief inside of our spiritual ecosystem is kind of like that vulture that sees that there's something there that has rotted and needs to go away, and it can't fly anymore, it can't move, and it can't nourish us. It's turned into something else. And so you have all of these different creatures, whether they crawl on the land or they fly through the air, and they come and they deal with that, and they remove the worst layers, their grief. They fly in and they help you deal with what can no longer remain without harming everything. And what you have left is something that can nourish everything. And so, now I'm looking at another clock that says 7:07. And that's funny, because I'm not a person who knows what every single number means right off the bat, but I notice them when they turn up repetitively, and this clock is not even keeping proper time. I've had it up to all the way past all the places with daylight savings times and situations, and I just don't even reset the clock. I'm going to have to at some point. It's losing time, but it's not even carrying the right time. So when I look up and I see it having a very significant number, I'm like, that's not coinky-dink. I can't even know what time that clock has. I never reset this clock. It's been like 4 years. At some point I need to do it just so I can start over again and it can be keeping the right minute. If this thing says 7:07, that probably means it's like 13 or something. I don't know. I don't even know anymore, but nonetheless, that was interesting. And now I'm going on about minutia, so I'm going to wrap this baby up. And if you got any use, please share it and like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, and to the best of everyone's healthiest abilities in ways that are beautiful and safe. Honor your own right to your own grief, and mourn with what will feel like undignified, but is actually quite extremely dignified and self-loving grief. I don't even know how my words are coming out anymore. I'm already retroactively editing just because that sounded weird as a close, but whatever, this is the real close, and that's about it. Bye now.